welcome to another episode of The Athlete's Mindset. Today, I'm joined by Colby Halter, an infielder from Jacksonville, Florida, who played at the University of Florida before being drafted by the Athletics in the 2023 MLB Draft. Colby has experienced the highs and lows of competing at the highest levels of college and professional baseball. He also brings a great perspective on the mental side of the game. In this episode, we'll dive into his journey, the mindset that has helped him succeed, and the lessons he's learned along the way. I'm excited for you all to hear his story. Let's get into it. Colby, welcome to the podcast. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Not too bad. So you're back in Arizona now. Spring training's just getting going. How was the off season after your first full season of professional baseball?
Yeah, it was good. Actually, in July last year, I ended up having surgery on my right hand, so it was a little bit longer off season than I'd hoped for or used to. But usually anyway, towards the back half of the off season, you're itching to get playing again. So that just happened to me a little bit earlier this year, but ready to go.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess you were rehabbing. What did kind of your rehab and just your workout routine and hitting routine, what that looked like over the off season?
Yeah. So I was rehabbing out in Arizona from July till probably September. Then got to go back to Florida at the end of September. And I actually there was a good group of us back in Jacksonville this year. I lived in St. Pete the off season before, and I trained at a gym down there. But this off season, I did remote weight training with Summers method, and then I had a group of two big leaguers and me that we hit together every single day back in Jacksonville. So that was super helpful to me. But it was good, really good.
Yeah, that's great. So speaking of Jacksonville, you grew up there. You end up at the University of Florida. Talk just a little bit about just growing up. Did you always want to go to the University of Florida? And then talk a little bit about that. And then once you got there, what was kind of your mindset showing up on campus as a freshman and then just building your way throughout the program?
Yeah, I grew up a huge Gator fan, for all sports, really. Tim Tebow was my hero growing up watching football, and I played every sport growing up. But yeah, I knew, when I started looking at colleges and stuff, Florida was always at the top of my mind. And then when I ended up actually visiting places, I visited FSU and Florida, and I was talking to Virginia a little bit, but it was pretty much between FSU and Florida. And when it came down to it, I made a pros and cons list, all this stuff. And the one thing that Florida was better than FSU was just on the FSU list, it literally said not Florida. So I didn't really have a choice. So that's what I had to do. But it all worked out great, and I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah. So you show up on campus as a freshman at a big time program playing in the SEC. What was kind of your mindset showing up on campus? I'll be honest, when I showed up on campus as a freshman, I almost just felt like a fish out of water, almost like I didn't deserve to be there. Oh, these guys are really damn good. How am I going to fit in here? What was kind of your thought the moment you step on campus?
Yeah. Looking back, I definitely feel like I could have fallen into that, but I guess the year before that, and I played for Team USA and stuff, and played with a bunch of really good players and guys that got picked really high in the draft. And I kind of thought that I was going to go high in the draft, and ended up turning down some money or whatever. So I felt like when I got to campus, I wanted to prove to everyone, that I belonged. And it's definitely eye-opening. You know how it is at a big D1. There's great players. The guys that are, there's juniors and seniors that will never play pro ball that are really good baseball players. And so, just getting into the first fall and doing inter squads and stuff like that, the competition is really tough. And, a lot of freshmen struggle really bad. I didn't have a great freshman fall, but I hung in there, and, I've always been super competitive. So, my goal was to start my freshman year, and I ended up doing that in the spring. But, it wasn't an easy fall at all. I had some good older guys take me under their wings. Kirby McMullen was one of them, and just be a really good teammate to me. So I'm super thankful for that. But, definitely it can go one of two ways for sure. And if you're not tough or thick-skinned, it can definitely go bad for you.
Yeah. Talking about just playing at Florida and going through a little bit of adversity, can you talk a little bit just about some adversity that you maybe faced and just how you responded to that? Or even talk about how, maybe you dug yourself a hole and really struggled and then had to get yourself out of that hole. Talk a little bit just if you had any times.
I think
kind of like that.
Growing up, I always held myself to a super high standard and had high expectations for myself. And one thing that I've learned, and like the advice I give all players, like you're going to struggle at some point in your career. It depends when. Some guys never struggle till they're in the big leagues, or maybe, a couple of years into their big league career, whatever. But for everyone, it happens at some point. And, my freshman year, I said the fall was tough, but those games don't really count, right? There's not like stats posted anywhere. And, we got to the spring and I had a pretty good year, like hit 300, whatever, had a great freshman year. Came back for my sophomore year. And I actually had a hip surgery after my freshman year, so didn't play that summer. Came back in the fall, sophomore year. Was just really focused on getting my body healthy. And then we started the spring, and I started the hottest I've ever started. Like I was hitting 450 through the first month and a half, 2 months, 5 homers. I had 3 the year before on me. Like I was feeling great. And then I hit like a 7 for 100 something skid, like just terrible, horrible. And, it's tough. That was probably the first time in my life I had like really, struggled for a long period of time. And, looking back, it's only 100 at bats, but, it was my world. It feels like the end of the world. So that was really tough. And I was not having fun. So, I was hitting leadoff and, every day, oh God, I got 5 at bats today. How am I going to get through this? Whatever, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And, I'm super competitive. Like I said, I felt bad, like I was letting my team down. I wanted to be winning games and contributing. But one thing that, we had really good coaches there as well. And Chuck Geralman's our infield guy. And we got super close at my time there. But, you just say, control the things you can control. Like when I was struggling at the plate, come and play your best defense every day. Do stuff like that. Like help your teammates out. Be a good teammate. You can always do that. You can hustle everywhere. And that's something that my dad had always told me my whole life anyway. My dad would never yell at me based on like my performance at the plate, whatever. But if I was being a bad teammate or not hustling, he'd get on me, pretty good. And so I think that was already instilled in me. But yeah, I mean, the struggling is not fun. And when I started playing better again, my sophomore year is the playoffs. And, that's just when everyone's just focused on just winning and helping the team win, trying to beat the team that you're playing against. And that's when I always play my best baseball. I still fall into it sometimes, putting some pressure on myself, and it never leads to good things. I always play my best when I'm just competing against the other guys out there, in the postseason, stuff like that. So that was a big lesson for me. And then I went after that year, it got kind of hot at the end again, but went to Cape Cod and had a great summer. Kind of just playing easy. How summer ball is a little bit different than at school, but had a great summer. Kind of learned from that experience. Like I play my best base. I love competing. I love, trying to punch the other team in the mouth, but, just not putting so much pressure on yourself goes a long way.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a very fine line between putting a whole bunch of pressure on yourself where it's important. Like you're going up to bat and you're like, I want to do this for my teammates. I want to win. But then also it gets to a point where you put too much pressure on yourself where you're just like, I'm just digging myself a hole, and there's no shot I'm going to have success with the amount of pressure and just like thinking every at bat's life or death.
Yeah. And, like letting like things like I was sophomore eligible in the draft. And so definitely like, had that great start, and, you start hearing whispers and all that stuff. There's all these lists, whatever. And obviously like you want to be on that stuff, but at the end of the day, like it does not matter. Like, you let that stuff get in your head, it's detrimental for sure. And I lived it, no doubt. So,
100%.
Yeah.
Like you said earlier, I kind of liked how you said your dad would never get on you about having a bad game or having a golden sombrero day or anything. My dad was the same way. It was like, if I had a terrible day, but, was like still had positive attitude, totally fine. But like the moment I come in the dugout or like throw my helmet or something, like he would be on my head. And I think that's one thing that I kind of just like learned over time is control what you can control. It's so easy to just have a negative outlook. And anytime you have a negative outlook, it's just going to lead to a negative outcome. So transitioning from that into your junior year, you had a great summer in the Cape prior to that, and then you get drafted. What was kind of that experience like, just your draft day and hearing your name called?
Yeah, it's something that I wanted to do my whole life, go to kindergarten for a career day, and I dressed up as a baseball player. So it's pretty cool to be able to do this now for my job. And it's just like a lifelong dream fulfilled,
100%.
Yeah.
So you get drafted, you go to the A's, you show up in Arizona. How'd you feel showing up there? I mean, similar to like you said when you showed up at Florida, is you were just like, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. Like people doubted me. Maybe you got drafted a little bit later. What was kind of your thought process when you show up in Arizona?
Yeah, we had just finished a really, really good season at Florida. We're national runner-up, second place in Omaha. And it's kind of a whirlwind. Had like maybe a 2-week break, a week and a half before the draft. And then you get out to Arizona. And I don't know if you've ever been to Arizona in the summer, but it's not a great climate in the summer.
No.
It was the first day we show up to camp, and JD, our head strength coach at the time, he's like, all right, guys, I brought in this cookie dough. I'm going to go set this on my windshield for the day, and I'll give you guys some cookies at the end of the day. Like, you can literally bake things just in the sun. It was like, I think it was 120 degrees for 30 days straight or something in the valley. So it's super hot. And you show up, and, minor league baseball isn't the most glamorous thing in the world. You kind of learn that early on. You get treated really well at somewhere like Florida, stuff like that. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just different. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I came in, ready to prove myself, and I'm still trying to do that. But, making relationships with people, we got a lot of really good people over at the A's, and I really appreciate everyone there.
100%.
Yeah.
Going based off of that, what have you noticed is just the biggest difference in pro ball compared to college ball?
Yeah, I think college, you have a lot of things kind of set up for you, and people making sure you get things done, and, weights, class, food, all this stuff is kind of given to you. But, pro ball, a lot of the things are kind of on you to make sure you get it done. It's your career, you need to take ownership of it. And hopefully you've learned, through college and stuff like that, like what you need to do and how to act. But, if you don't, guys will try to whip you in shape quick. But, if you don't want to do anything, no one's forcing you. You're an adult, you're a professional athlete, you make your own decisions.
Yeah, definitely. So you are facing guys, all professional baseball players. There's definitely got to be some ups and downs. What's kind of your thought process? Let's say you are in maybe just a little bit of a slump, a 3-day slump. What's kind of your thought process to stay positive and then also just get out of that?
Yeah, I think perspective is huge. When you're in the middle of something, it can feel like the end of the world. But especially now, 3 days is probably 15 at bats, right? If you play a full season, you're getting 500 something at bats. So I'm not saying they're not important, but you got to look at the big picture. And, I think a lot of being a good hitter in professional baseball, or just in general, is, making those times. Everyone's going to struggle and everyone's going to feel terrible, but making those times shorter if you can, and trying to just, turn a 0 for 15 into maybe a 2 for 12 with a couple walks and a couple, maybe a bunt base hit here or there, whatever. Trying to just find ways to get out of it and keep it light, definitely. And one good piece of advice I got, guy a lot, he's played in the big leagues for, almost 10 years, Ben Gamble. He was saying it takes a long time to have a good season. It takes a long time to have a bad season. So, you can start really hot, month of April, whatever, but, you got to keep that up. And you can also start terribly, but it's a long, long year. So, you always have opportunity.
Yeah. I'm frustrated with myself because I can't remember, but I remember hearing a story about a guy that was just a long-time big leaguer, and he always hit 300, like just career 300 batting average. And there was start the season, like 2 months in, he's hitting like 150. And a reporter comes up to him and is like, are you struggling? Like, what's going on? Like, how are you not like pressing? And he's like, oh, I just know I'm going to get hot. I'm going to hit 300 anyway. There's so much season left. I just got to, these like time's going to come and I'm just going to start raking. So I think that's a real good perspective that you kind of have, is don't let it last too long. And if you kind of have a negative mindset, you don't put it in perspective, then you're just going to, that drought's just going to keep carrying on.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of staying kind of on the hitting side, what's kind of your approach when you get in the box and you are facing these high level arms? What's your just approach every at bat?
Yeah. It definitely changes necessarily. Like, a guy's got a ride heater, a sinker, or whatever, but, just like a standard approach my whole life. Yeah. I've always tried to use the whole field. And, it gets complicated, but honestly, I think hitting is better, simple. Try to stay on a heater and, either drive it to left center or right center. And it can change, with how you're feeling day to day. But, the best hitters I know, really keep it simple. I mean, you can have a game plan going in, no pitcher's tendencies, whatever, but some of the best people in this game at hitting, are dumb. It's like it's a
Yeah.
barbaric sport. You're taking a stick and hitting a ball. I think
Yeah.
if we try to make it too complicated, we can run into trouble, and I've definitely done that before. But keeping it simple, just staying on a fastball and trying to crush it.
Yeah. You mentioned that you played against Max Anderson in the Cape,
Yeah,
and funny, he was just on the last podcast, and one thing he said, he was like, I'm not really the brightest guy, but it really helps me. Like, he's like,
yeah.
it's kind of nice. Like, no brain, no think. You just go up and you just hit. So that's definitely something that is beneficial to plenty of guys who have played baseball for a long time.
And I think that goes hand in hand with the slump thing, right? Like sometimes a lot of guys that, overthink, they can be really smart guys. And, some guys are too dumb to even know they're in a slump. It's great. They forget.
Yeah.
And, which is awesome. I mean, it really is true. So it's funny.
Yeah. You kind of just have to have like the memory of a goldfish. Just like one
Yeah.
at bat happens, you strike out and you just flush it right away. No clue what happened. And like you said, is you got to put in perspective. You're getting 500 at bats over a season. And one thing that Max mentioned is like 3 days isn't that bad. Like if you don't get a hit for 3 days, really not that deep. It's just how you respond after that to make sure it doesn't turn into a week or 2 weeks. He said was kind of the biggest part. Moving on from that, I kind of am curious just on what maybe the best mental advice that you have gotten just about the mental side of the game, and what kind of just keeps you going throughout all the struggles.
Yeah. I think, just like I mentioned a couple of times before, I love competing, whether it's ping pong, off the field, whatever, golf, anything like, especially growing up, I was super competitive. And so I think really like what makes me love the game is just competing at something I'm good at. And, there's a lot of failure in baseball, but, I've just learned to love like all parts of the game. Like it's brought me, some of the best friends I've ever had, great experiences going to Cape Cod. I went to South Korea in high school, Team USA, like stuff like that. You just, when I picked up a bat and a ball when I was 6, I had no idea that was going to happen. And I playing my whole life, I made some of my best friends playing travel baseball, stuff like that. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to appreciate, and I love what I do. So, there's tough times for sure, but there's really good times too. And I think just loving like the day to day, I like practicing too. Like whenever the off season starts, and everyone's pretty burnt out at the end of the year, but I get a week or two of doing nothing, and I'm ready to go again. Like it's kind of funny how it works. I don't know what to do with myself if I'm not playing baseball. So and I love sharing the game. I've had great mentors and role models for me. Great coaches I've played for. After I'm done playing, I'd love to coach and share the knowledge like they've given me. At the next generation, stuff like that. It's a pretty beautiful game for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I actually started coaching this spring at a high school just nearby. And it's just been so cool because, I mean, you've been playing longer than I have, but just learning so much in the 4 years of playing college baseball. And it's super cool just to kind of give back to like those high school kids who have never heard these things that took me 4 years to understand. And so it's
Right.
kind of cool to explain those things and just kind of all the, highs and lows that you've experienced, and just so they don't have to go through that like, we did or you're currently going through. So along with that, you said you're always at the field. Like you have so much, you enjoy it, you love it. And it's a job. I mean, like you don't have a job, your job's to play baseball. So what's something that you think that just the public or just common person doesn't understand about professional baseball and just athletes in general?
Yeah, I think I mean, we do have like a long off season. I'm not complaining, but when you're on, you're fully on. You barely have time really to, I'm away from my family for half the year. It's travel, especially in the minor leagues. You're traveling from city to city. You're in places that no one's ever heard of. You don't know anybody. The living situation is sometimes tough. Living out of a hotel for half the year is not, it's not super fun. Things are getting better with our new players union, but you got to really love the game you play, I think. And, I'm not complaining at all. I love it. I wouldn't change it, but it's not like, and, there's guys that sign for a lot of money, right? But there's, at least half or more than half that don't. And, are living pretty frugally and doing stuff like that and just trying to chase a dream. So I think some people think like someone gets drafted, they're just rich, whatever. But
Yeah,
I,
definitely.
I'm not complaining though. I love what I do, and I think I'm super lucky. Thank God every day I can do what I do. But yeah, maybe that's a misconception. I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. And I think plenty of times people just don't think of athletes as like people. They're just like, they're out there just to perform. And so you're out there, like you just said, is you're grinding. Like it's every single day. Like it's not easy. There's definitely days that are a struggle. And so I think a lot of people don't recognize that, especially fans or the people that are, chirping you from the stands. It's like, this guy's grinded his whole life to be where he is now.
And
So
I
I think
get it.
that's
Like, I've been a fan before. It's fun to chirp the
yeah,
right field or whatever. Or you're at a basketball game, chirp the point guard, all that stuff. I think that's part of it too. Like we understand
yeah.
as players, how to handle that stuff and not really listen to it. I remember my first SEC road series ever was at South Carolina, and they were pretty rough. Like they're screaming your girlfriend's name, all your mom, all this stuff, and you hear it. We hear it 100%. But it was a good learning experience for me. Just like learning how to deal with that because it doesn't go away. So,
Yeah.
um,
100%. When I was at Portland, we actually played at Texas A&M in a 3-game series, won 2 out of 3, which was crazy. But we're the University of Portland, like small school up in Oregon, and we show up and I'm taking like IO at first base, and the student section's yelling like my mom's name, my grandma's name. I'm like, where did you guys come up with this? Like, it's unreal. So do you have any other like kind of a funny story or anything else that you just experienced in the SEC or?
yeah, I mean, there's some crazy places. One place, Mississippi State. My high school head coach played there, and some of the guys on his staff had played there too. So I'd been hearing my whole entire high school about. They do like there's left field lounge. I don't know if you are familiar, but there's like a bunch of grills and back in the day they used to just pull cars up and barbecue and all this stuff. And Mississippi State loves their baseball, so they have some passionate fans for sure. But they'll give it to you all weekend. Hard. They're being ruthless, all this stuff. But on Sundays after the series, no matter what, you go out to left field and they'll hand you like racks of ribs and T-bone steaks, all this stuff like right in your which is pretty cool. I think it's an awesome tradition, and that place has a lot of baseball tradition. That was pretty sweet. But I'd been hearing about it my entire high school. I was so excited for it, and it didn't let me down. It was fun.
Yeah. How'd you guys do at Mississippi State?
We slept them too, so that probably helped.
Dang, that's so nice. And you just take their food after.
Exactly. Yeah, it felt good.
That's awesome. So I want to end every episode with kind of just the same question. If you could tell yourself one thing, your younger self one thing, just about the mental side of the game and going through the highs and lows, what would it be?
Yeah, I think yeah, I don't know that I'd change this about myself because I think it's good in some ways for sure, but just to be a little bit easier, you can't. I had, again, Chuck Geralman. He pulled me aside one of these days and he's like, listen, like the things you say to yourself, I know you. Like if someone else said that to you, you would not stand for it. You'd punch them right in the face. Like you need to stop being your own worst enemy, and I would never say things like that. Like when it was bad, like I just wanted to do really well and just being super tough on myself, but it's counterproductive. And so that's something I'd tell my younger self is to, hold yourself to a high standard, but also, cut yourself some slack sometimes.
Yeah. One thing I really liked about that is I've heard to almost see yourself in a third person point of view. So if your teammate strikes out 3 times, you're not thinking he's the worst, like he cannot hit at all. But if you strike out 3 times, you're like, it's the end of the world. I'm the worst hitter of all time. So it's almost just like, think of yourself in the third person. Like, I will never tell a teammate this, and I still believe in them 100% the next at bat to go get a hit. So that's some really good insight. I like that. It's a good point.
Yep.
So I just want to thank you for coming on. This is awesome. First Florida Gator I've actually ever met. So this is sweet. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Tristan. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you again to Colby for sharing his journey and insights in the mental game. If you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might find it valuable. Thanks for tuning in, and let's keep moving forward. Until next time.